This meeting of the Senate Public Safety Committee to order. We're going to ask our very own Senator Kim Jackson to please give us a opening prayer.
Let us pray. Holy God, we pause this day to give you thanks for the opportunity to gather with each other. We pray especially for those who help protect the public. We pray for those who are in uniform, both here and abroad. Remember especially our firefighters and EMTs, police officers, those who travel with lights and sirens to those who are in need. We ask that you would watch over and bless and strengthen us all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to have several bills on the calendar today. Let's see. I have got some folks here today that I want to recognize who are kind enough to be a Senate page today. So I've got Kate and Jackson back there. If you all want to stand up real quick so we can recognize you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And I see Sydney and Aubrey back there. I want you all to stand up so we can recognize you as well. Thank you for being here. All right, we love having our young folks here, and I look forward to the day that we're watching you as you lead our great state. Okay, we're going to begin with our very own Majority Leader, Senator Steve Gooch, for Senate Bill 507. If you'd take the podium, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a pretty simple, straightforward bill. I know we see a lot of these tag bills, license plate bills that come through every year, but this is one that I believe will get a lot of support around the nation, here in Georgia especially. This is America First bill. As you can see, it is a picture of the image of our great American flag for the great people of the great state of Georgia, as our own Senator Lee Anderson would say. So don't need to say any more than that. It represents patriotism and freedom and the American dream. So love to have your support on this today.
All right, are there questions from the bill's author? One from Senator Robertson, our Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I appreciate you bringing this bill forward. Do you have any idea how many specialty tags we have in the state of Georgia?
I understand there's probably in excess of 400.
The gentleman knows of which he speaks.
Yep.
I think this would probably make 402.
Could be, but well, thank you. This gives people choice and opportunities to decide how they want to display their patriotism and their love for their country.
Does the funding from the purchase of this tag go anywhere in particular, or does it go to the general fund?
It goes straight to the general fund, pay for the good operations of our state government.
To support the taxpayers of
Yes,
Georgia?
sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Other questions or comments for the bill's author? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of the committee?
So moved.
I've got a motion from Senator Williams. I've got a second from Senator Goodman. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. All right, we've got 3 ayes and 2 nays. All right. Thank you, Leader Gooch. We appreciate your time. All right, is Chairman Jay Collins from the House here? I do not see him yet, so we're going to wait on that. Next, we're going to have House Bill 167, and I'm going to ask District Attorney from Cherokee, from the Blue Ridge Circuit, to come on up. This is Ms. Susan Treadaway. She is going to take us through. This is a substituted bill, 167. I want to give you a brief background before District Attorney takes us through this bill. As typically happens at the end of session, sometimes we combine bills, and we have a couple of House bills here that were already used in other pieces of language. And one of the things that our Public Safety Committee always try to focus on is the safety of our first responders and other victims of crime. And I think today you're going to find there's an excellent piece of legislation. It's been fully vetted through the Prosecuting Attorneys Council and their legislative committee. And I think will go a long way to strengthening our laws and ultimately protecting our citizens and first responders. So I'm going to turn it over to you, D.A. Treadaway.
Thank you, Senator Albers. It's a pleasure to be here before you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this bill. We're all aware of the opioid crisis that is facing our nation, and we know that this has become more deadly, especially over the last 5 years or so with the introduction and surge of fentanyl into our street drug trade. Some users are setting out for the unique high that this drug provides, but we know that there are a fair share, if not most, that are completely unaware that fentanyl is in the drug that they are obtaining on the street, whether that might be combined with methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, or some type of pressed pill. Fentanyl is an extremely potent synthetic opioid. As we know, it is estimated to be 50 times more potent than heroin and 100 times more potent than morphine. Recently, I asked the GBI to compile some statistics for us that we could look at what's going on in the state of Georgia, and I was saddened to learn that over the past 5 years, 6,248 families have buried loved ones as a result of this drug epidemic, and with 3,012 of those deaths having directly resulted from fentanyl. This data shows an increase in fentanyl analog deaths from 176 in 2019 to 779 in 2023, which represents an increase of more than 400%. I standing here before you with the support of the District Attorneys Association of Georgia, we have an absolute duty to inform you, the lawmakers, when we come upon opportunities to create safer communities through legislation. And I'm here to say that I believe the bill before you now for consideration has the ability to accomplish just this. Currently, under Georgia law, prosecutors have one mechanism for prosecuting a person who causes death by distribution of a drug, and we do that under the felony murder statute, and that's found under OCGA 1651. Under this schedule of offenses, you're going to find the predicate offense is going to be either sale or distribution, commonly for felony murder. What is problematic about this current structure is this is a one-size-fits-all structure of charging this nature of a case. And so we might think, well, why would we not want a life sentence to apply in every one of these circumstances, right? Because we know that felony murder carries a minimum mandatory life sentence where you can get life without parole. Well, the concern with this is, do we as prosecutors and as a community and as a state want to make a finding that every factual scenario we come upon is supportive of a life sentence? And I believe the answer to that questioning is a resounding no. And I want to give you an example of that. You have two 17-year-olds that attend a party. They have some pressed pills. They share those pills. One person survives and the other kills potentially their very best friend, had no intention to do so. Then conversely, you have someone who's 40 years of age who has previously been convicted of a drug offense, and they have sold pounds of fentanyl, and they end up taking the life of another. Those two individuals get the same sentence, which is life in prison. And I think from describing that scenario to you, you can understand why there may be a hesitancy of prosecutors and communities and jurors and judges in making the finding that it is appropriate to send the 17-year-old to prison for life, the same as they would the 40-year-old. But of course, I think we're all at a point where we believe accountability is key, and the person who causes the other person to lose their life through some act of their own should be held accountable, and that's what this bill in front of you will do. Just to give a little bit more information of why the felony murder structure that we currently have is unworkable. In order to establish felony murder, a prosecutor has to show that the predicate of felony was inherently dangerous, that the distribution of the substance was the proximate cause of the death, and that the death occurred in the commission of the distribution. Without going into a whole lot more detail, unless you have questions, I will simply say that prosecutions of this nature can present challenges due to the fact-specific analysis the court must perform under the felony murder statute. We currently lack a large body of cases in Georgia under this scheme we're talking about when we have a death that is caused with drug distribution, which prosecutors can rely on. So in other words, there's not a lot for us to look at. We have a few examples that I can go into if you have questions, but there's not a giant caseload that we can look at and say, well, this scenario is exactly like mine, so I can go forward with this. What changes are we presenting in this bill? We're looking to make these changes and modifications through 161330, OCGA 161330, which outlaws the possession, sale, distribution of controlled substances in the state of Georgia. The proposed change is to add the language that if a death or serious bodily injury results from the use of such substance, he or she shall be imprisoned for not less than 10 years, no more than 40 years, or life imprisonment. And secondly, if there is a subsequent or second conviction, that punishment would be enhanced to not less than 15 years and more than 50 years. We have also included a definition of the term use of such substance, which shall include exposure to or contact with such substance by a law enforcement officer, firefighter, or first responder, as defined in Code Section 31-11-55.1, and the course of his or her duties resulting in his or her death or serious bodily injury. Why that is important is this updated language requires the proof of death was caused from the use of such substance and poses a but-for causation, whereas looking at the proximate cause standard for felony murder, as I've just described, is much more complex. Why do we need this change? As I already stated, we need accountability and we need consistency. At a recent conversation last week with a physician in my jurisdiction, which is Cherokee County, the Blue Ridge Judicial Circuit, and he shared some pain that he had experienced with the passing of his son at the age of 23 years with me. And he said, my son died of a heroin overdose, and I am not standing before you saying that my son did not contribute to what happened to him. But I wish the law would recognize that my son's life meant something. We know that these drug offenders can be prosecuted for distribution of drugs, but as the statute currently stands, it doesn't have that extra added language that when death or serious injury occurs, that person shall have that punishment. And I believe that adding this language, as I discussed with him, and he was very much in support of that, would give some express validity and value to the loss of his son's life, and show that we are going to recognize that in the form of punishment by finding that when someone distributes drugs that cause the death of another, that there is a specific punishment for that, while recognizing that there are different factual scenarios that might require or dictate that the punishment should not necessarily be life in prison. The benefits of restructuring 161330, offenders of all backgrounds will receive clear notice of what conduct is prohibited under the law, leading to a greater degree of deterrence. Police are more comfortable taking the charge when appropriate due to greater understanding of prohibited conduct and how to articulate this when an arrest is made. Prosecutors and judges will then have wide discretion in sentencing based on a case-by-case analysis. Family members of victims will be provided with the opportunity to have true impact in sentencing. And the proposed structure mirrors the federal counterpart, therefore providing legal precedent for immediate citation upon the change in the law. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We do have a question or two. Want to give a lot of credit and thankfulness for you to bring this forward, District Attorney Treadaway. This is a very thoughtful approach. I think it's going to be very beneficial, not just to the victims, but also the victims who are first responders, which are represented by many of us here, former and current. And knowing that even sometimes just being in contact with fentanyl or other serious drug can cause severe bodily injury up to and including death. So I appreciate that. And just a reminder, the name of this bill I think is aptly named, which is Justice for Victims of Drug-Induced Homicides. We're going to get a question here from Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Dietrich, you gave us an example of two 17-year-olds. One shares a press pill with the other, one dies, one lives. If this bill were to become law, the 17-year-old whose best friend died, but who also how long, if this bill were to become law, would he have to be in jail?
He would not have to serve any jail time unless the court determined that was appropriate. And I believe that is one of the greater benefits of this new structure. The judge would have the ability to sentence that person. It's a minimum of 10 years, but that can be probated. So if the judge determined that that individual deserved prison time based on, and we live in a world of scenarios as prosecutors, as you know. And so there are cases that present where you might have 99% of the fact scenario is identical, and then you tweak one small part and it changes everything.
Yeah, I just needed to be reminded that it doesn't mention probation, so because there's no mention of probation, that means it could be probated. That's I think the missing piece that I need to be reminded of. And then my second question is around this definition of use of such substance. So law enforcement officers in particular have a responsibility to bag things for evidence and such. As such, based on this definition, a law enforcement officer who doesn't take precautions to, glove up properly, use mask, whatever is necessary to secure that evidence, if they were unfortunately to lose their lives, based on this definition, the person who had that substance, whether they knew it had fentanyl or not, would then therefore be guilty of a homicide based on that definition. And I'm concerned about that because I believe the stories that I know are from being an EMT, and it's EMTs who are caring for a body, caring for a person. They don't know that that's there, right? And they're the ones who lose their lives. But this is so catch-all that the law enforcement officer who, is just cleaning up the stuff and didn't take their own precautions on their own would suddenly now be able to be charged the person would be charged for homicide. So I'm just a little concerned about vast nature of this definition of use of substance.
So if I can expound upon that, under the law currently, that person can already be prosecuted for felony murder. And that is why I am coming to you and saying we may not need that minimum mandatory. So what we are doing is we're actually taking that away and making it possible so that that individual may not be prosecuted at all. Of course, we all have wide discretion as district attorneys, and we would review that case and look at every fact that happened there, every circumstance that is present to determine do we even go forward. But presently, what a prosecutor could do under the very same scenario is if that person had a large amount of the substance in the car, or I would say not a large amount, enough to meet the threshold of being with intent to distribute. The prosecutor would say the person who had was in the vehicle was in possession with intent to distribute that drug, and during the commission of that felony, there was a death, which means we either charge it and they get life, or we don't charge it at all. So what I am doing with this bill with Senator Albers coming to you today is recognizing that there may be some scenarios where life in prison is not the required punishment.
I think, if anything, it may work to your benefit of your point you made, Senator Jackson. All right, question, Senator Robertson? No? Okay. All right, other questions of committee members? All right, well, I've got nobody signed up, so I believe the time is right. I'll recognize the vice chairman.
Motion do pass.
A motion to pass, second from Senator Williams. Any further discussion from the committee members? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much,
Thank you
District
all.
Attorney Treadaway, for setting a terrific example, and wonderful to have your daughter and her friend here today see Mom in action. Nothing better than that.
Thank you all.
so
Have a
much.
good afternoon.
All right, Senator Dixon, would you please go on down?
Chairman.
Yes, thank you.
Because she obviously can't carry. So, gotcha.
All right, Senator Dixon, we have Senate Bill
swear in.
508, and this one's a bit personal to some of us in this room, so please take it away. Thank you for your good work on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just working off LC 394198 for Senate Bill 508. Yes, sir, very personal to me and a couple, yourself and another member. But bringing this bill forward, it has to do with our judges in the great state of Georgia and protecting them. It would establish the Administrative Office of Courts to establish and maintain a database, training, and sharing of information for the purpose of restricting public access to certain personal information of state, federal judges, justices, and spouses of those judges as well. It would prohibit the sharing of certain personal information. Example would be like their phone number, their personal address, and other matters where they could be identified to protect those judges here in the state of Georgia. And yes, very personal to myself. My family and I, we got swatted twice. The first time was on Christmas Day, and then the day after, I know Senator Jackson, you and your family were swatted as well. First Christmas with your baby boy, can't imagine how traumatic that was. And same with you, Mr. Chairman. Albers, along with Kay Kirkpatrick as well, was swatted, and several other elected officials were swatted right around Christmas. Can become a very dangerous situation for obvious reasons. This is, a bipartisan issue, and it's a public safety issue, and we're in the correct committee here to address this, and just wanted to bring this good piece of legislation forward.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your great work on this, and I want to thank all the members of the judiciary who helped in crafting this legislation. We appreciate the teamwork. Are there questions from the committee members? All right, seeing none. All right, 1 second here. Just want to make sure. I don't think we have anybody signed up for this bill. Okay, I think the time is appropriate, Senator Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to pass on the SB 503.
All right. Got a second from Senator Payne. Is there any further discussion from the committee members? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Passed unanimously. All right.
Thank you
you
very
very much. Sorry, we don't do hand raises here. We do sign-up sheets for those who are in the audience. So. All right. I am then going to move us to Senate Bill 348. And let's see. I need to know if there is a representative from Hold Reckless Drivers and School Zones Accountable here. Oh, yes.
When the motion was made, it was to pass 503 instead of 508.
Sorry, I may have misspoke.
All right, let's go ahead and do that again, just to make sure.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we pass Senate Bill 508.
508.
I
And a
apologize
second
if I
from Senator
misspoke.
Payne again? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Passed unanimously. Thank you, and now I know why you're raising your hand in the back. Okay, so again, looking for a representative of hold reckless drivers in school zones accountable, or give kids a break. I don't see them here. So this is a great public service opportunity for us and good for young people to do. So there is an anonymous group called Give Kids a Break that has a website with nobody's contact name or information on it. They have a Facebook page with nobody's contact information on it, who are saying things that are not true, sending text messages and emails out to contact all of us on this committee. This is what a lack of candor and professionalism gets you in this world. So whomever the person is who is putting these out, trying to contact all our committee members and sending text message and phone messages, but is clearly too embarrassed themselves to actually put their name on it, grow up. We have some wonderful young people in the room who have a much higher sense of maturity than people who are sending foolish stuff out like this. And if you'd like to have a meeting, we'd be happy to have one, and we'll have you put on that podium, and we'll ask you the questions that apparently you're not willing to answer by putting these things out. So hopefully everybody who listens got that message. All right, we're going to talk about House Bill 348. We spent a lot of time taking testimony and reviewing this at our prior meeting with Chairman Jay Collins from the House. I want to make sure everybody's aware the House committee passed a total ban a couple of days ago. What we're doing is trying to bring uniformity to the code. All cameras, including school zones. Now, that was my friends in the House, and we are here in the Senate. So we have an opportunity here, I believe, to bring uniformity. We made a couple of changes per the committee's recollection, and one of those was to add some existing fines that I was proud to get from our Vice Chairman, Senator Robertson. We also changed the times, and the times are in the morning, an hour before and an hour after, and in the afternoon, an hour before and 2 hours after, specifically for clubs and sporting activities. I believe that's a very fair balance, hearing what everybody had to say. And there is one area that I believe our Vice Chairman, the Whip, is going to ask to remove from the bill, which I think we agreed to, which is a concern that local agencies may not be able to go into a contract directly, but they would only be able to make that work with using some of the shared resources. Also, a change in here is that the net total amount they can collect from civil and criminal penalties goes from 35% to 30% of their budget. Again, I think that was a good compromise. And aside from that, it's pretty much everything else you saw here before. Are there questions from the committee members? All right. Why don't we begin with a motion, and then we will work on an amendment that I believe you want to make, Senator Robinson. Is that not accurate? Yes, sir, I do. All right. So let's start with an amendment on the, or a motion on the bill, please. Motion to pass from Senator Jones, second from Senator Jackson, and now any amendments? Senator Robertson.
Yes. I would like to amend the bill by striking line 337 down to line 341. The underlined portion starts at the letter M in brackets and goes down to the word assessed, period.
All right. I've got a motion for an amendment as stated by Senator Robertson. Do I have a second?
Can we have some discussion?
We have to have a second.
We have to have a second, have a discussion. Second from our very own Senator Goodman. Okay, discussion on the amendment.
Can you just say more about
Yeah.
what you're doing?
Yeah, the discussion on the amendment is I have an agency within my district that has these cameras. And every year that they've had them, the number of citations have dropped drastically. And so if you enter into a contract under subscription, then you agree to pay a vendor, whoever that might be, a fixed amount. And so the first year, it's there, the citations are given, and then you pay that fixed amount. Well, the second year you're there, you pay that fixed amount again, but what we've seen is that on average, these citations drop about 70%. So at some point, you are paying for a product, you're paying more for the equipment than you're bringing in. And anybody understands return on investment. You're using taxpayer dollars and to do this, and I think it's reasonable to allow each municipality and county government to make those determinations on their own as far as contracts go. I think by lowering the number from 35 to 30, I think we've taken a step forward into reducing revenue-based policing. And just briefly, something the chairman brought up earlier is what happened across the way earlier today. Somebody asked, if we get rid of these cameras, then how do we deal with speeding in school zones? And somebody said, and I'll quote the way it was quoted to me, we just stick a cop out there and they'll do it. Well, law enforcement officers aren't made to be stuck out somewhere to generate revenue for their counties or for their cities. They're certainly not supposed to be stuck out there to be the bad guys. Right now, we have a problem recruiting and retaining law enforcement officers, and there are much more, many times during the day, emergencies occurring around counties and municipalities that officers need to be responding to, and this technology has been proven to be effective, and putting the penalties in there the way they are, I think ensures that it is effective. And so I think we just need to hand back the counties and the municipalities the opportunities to enforce their local laws at their local schools without state interference. And so I'll step off my soapbox and listen to anybody contrary or any
Senator
questions.
Jackson, you have a question or a comment?
I do. I have some words. So I think I understand what the senator is trying to do with his amendment. I just don't know that the amendment gets us there. And I'm concerned about removing, so the line that I particularly think is important to maintain is that it says that you are not authorized to collect a percentage of the civil monetary penalties assessed. If we strike that whole thing, what we create is a system where the company that you subscribe with now will be able to get a cutoff of every single one of the tickets, which I think was counterintuitive to what we were trying to do. So I think I hear you trying to make sure that county and local persons can make their own contracts. I think that's what you're trying to do. I don't think that section M prohibits them from doing that. So I'm confused about your amendment.
I want the counties and the municipalities to enter their own contracts with the vendors.
Correct.
They will establish percentages. You lease our equipment, we bring it in there, or we bring our equipment in, you sign a contract with us. This is Company A speaking. They put it in there. These speeding in a school zone is a pretty expensive citation to start with if an officer pulls you over. These numbers are lesser than that, much lesser than that. So what they would do is they would say, for every citation that comes in, 90% or whatever number goes to the municipality and the county, and 10% goes to the use of your equipment. Whether if we do a subscription, then we set a static number that the county or the municipality is required to pay each year. And if your collection numbers on the citations, which they will substantially drop each year, get down here, then you're spending a number up here to lease equipment with no return on investment.
I
You're-
think,
You're
yeah.
wasting taxpayer
you're
dollars.
asking for
If I can help alleviate your concern, Senator Jackson, what Senator Roberts had did in
Yeah,
lieu
I
of this
understand.
was to also, though, take the over amount total threshold of a civil and criminal penalty down to 30%. So if there, not that I believe this would happen, but if somebody was trying to game the system for revenue, he put a check and balance there to offset that. That makes sense?
I do. I think that we have a philosophical difference for how we want these to work. But no, I do now fully understand what the senator is doing.
All right.
Absolutely.
So we have an amendment. Any other further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All right, it's unanimous. Now we have a new committee sub as amended. This was working off of LC 394263S. Make sure everybody's got that again. It's LC 394263S. We'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say no. Passes unanimously. All right, that's Chairman Collins. I'll be carrying that. Okay, the last bill on our agenda is Senate Bill 490. I believe that Senator Cowsert was called down to another meeting, though. And in talking to our legislative counsel, Jenna has some changes on that bill. So I'm going to ask Jenna if you would please work with Chairman Cowsert on making those edits for a committee substitute. And I'm looking over at Allison and Brooke. If you please make sure that we have the new committee substitute for tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the last committee meeting that we will have for any Senate bill to get out prior to crossover day. Currently, it looks like we're going to have 6 bills now in the committee in total. If there is something that the committee is particularly looking for, please contact me after the meeting so we can all be aligned prior to our meeting tomorrow afternoon. I know tomorrow afternoon is a early start day, and I just ask everybody to still be here so we can maintain our quorum and vet this important legislation. Thank you all for coming, and this meeting is hereby adjourned.